My name is Carol Jones, and I'll be taking you through the evening as best I can. Welcome to all those folks online and all of you in the room. And do we have any first-time visitors here today? Yay, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. So we're in this beautiful historic property that's been the headquarters of MSIA, the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness. Since 1974, we've been in this property. And back in those days, John Roger, the founder of MSIA and our spiritual advisor, gave many seminars similar to what it's going to look like here tonight. So we welcome you to cozy up with us and enjoy this evening of sharing with John Morton. And I'll be telling you more about that as we go. And for those of you who haven't had an introduction to MSIA yet, MSIA is all about soul transcendence, and that we've coined that as meaning knowing ourselves as one with God. So everything we do here, even the office work, the garden work, the meals that we prepare, are all to nourish our bodies and our minds and our emotions so that we can step into the spirit that's present here. And it's just very palpable. You know, as we go through the evening, I invite you to touch in and see how you're resonating with that. Sometimes you can come awake to it in a way that's really obvious, and other times it's really subtle. So just let it touch you however it does that. No, these teachings of MSIA that John Roger's been sharing with us and John Morton now over all these years are really the teachings that have come down through the ages, and they really are not contained in MSIA. They are teachings that have been with us for eons, and they are the spiritual truths of the spiritual heart. The thing that sets MSIA apart for me personally is that John Roger speaks a language that actually touches and I understand, and I can make a practical practice every single day. So Spirit, as much as I'm aware of it, is touching me on a personal level every single day. So now some logistics. If you'll turn off your cell phones, that would just be so helpful. And we ask that you not record the proceedings tonight in any way on any type of recording device. Let's have a chorus. We'll just all do that at once. So I'm going to introduce John in a moment, but we have a few things to prepare the way for his coming up. And one of them is an invocation to the light. And I'll say a prayer, which you're welcome to join in listening and having it touch you in whatever way it does. And after that, we will chant an ancient name of God called Hu, H-U. And attached to that is another tone called Ani, A-N-I. And that is a tone we often use when we're in a group like this because it brings in empathy and caring and loving for each other and appreciation and a oneness that is always available in spirit. So it goes like Ani, Hu, and you can join in. We'll do maybe 3 or 4 Ani Hus, and you can harmonize, or you can just sit and listen and take it in. So if you'll all just bring your hearts together with me, and we ask that Father, Mother, God, you be present here in such a way that we become aware of your holiness and your light and all the joys that you have in store for us. We ask all of this in your name, and we know that your will is always done. And we ask to just attune to your presence and make way for whatever enlightenment, whatever healing, whatever balancing can come forward tonight and going forward into the world. And we ask that this light touch all the places in the world that are in need, all the people and things that could be illuminated and brightened more and more. We're so grateful to come together, and we know that in this togetherness we serve you. And so it is. Anna. There's lots of ways that Spirit makes its presence known, and beauty is one of them. And we have this magnificent building that we're in that exemplifies Spirit on the physical level. And another way that we know that Spirit is present is through music. So we'll have a couple of pieces of music before John comes up to prepare ourselves and the way for him to come up. So first is Jimmy Ness, and Jimmy's singing an original song called In the Name.
My name's Jimmy, and I'm honored to be sitting up here. This is the best place for me to be, this building, and this is the best energy to be in, so I'm honored. This song is a simple song. It's actually in a genre that I've not sung in before. I almost want to talk like this because it's a little bit country, and so my name's Jimmy tonight, and it's called In the Name, like Carol said, and it just tells a little story about living a life and arriving in that life to living in the Lord's name. It goes like this. A tear cried in pain falls in vain when I'm holding on. Everything is gone. I gotta let it go. Find the flow in the name. In the Lord's name. In the name. Where's the smile, the laugh, the truth proclaims? It's been a hard ride. Open me up wide. Can I see the good, the God in life? In the name, in the Lord's name, in the name. Could it be easier? Comfort me. Is it really you? Hold me in your arms. Help me open wide. Take me home. In the name, in the Lord's name, in the name. Well, I shrank back and it hurt, so I'll open wide. If I stumble and I fall, I'll place all of my pride in the name, in the Lord's name, in the name, in Could it be the clouds are parting now? Just a blip in time, starting to unwind as I stay with you with an open heart. In the name, in the Lord's name, in the name. The sun is coming out, shining down. Open heart and sense, feel you all around, staying here and now. Comfort in the name, in the name, in the Lord's name, in the name. Well, I shrank back and it hurt, so I'll open wide. If I stumble and I fall, I'll place all of my pride in the name, in the Lord's name, in the name, in the Lord's name, in the name, in the Lord's name,
Thank you so much, Jimmy. That was just really beautiful. Next we have Alethea Lamb, and usually we hear Alethea play jazz on her clarinet. And tonight she's offering us a beautiful meditative piece. And if you'd like to, you can close your eyes and listen, or watch and listen, whatever you please. Thank you so much, Alethea. It's very sweet and very tender. Yeah. So really in a moment, John is coming up. And I just want to tell you a couple of things about how to ask questions tonight. Those of you who've already given us 3x5 cards, great. If you need a 3x5 card on which to write a question for John, please raise your hand, and an assistant will come and give it to you. And if you have one already written that you'd like to give to us, raise your hand and we'll come and pick them up. And those of you online can email msiaonline1@gmail.com. So, gosh, describing or introducing John, he holds the keys to the mystical traveler consciousness. And that's a term that has been used to describe the part of us that knows the way home, that knows the way to the heart of God. So John's a way shower. He's traveled the world sharing his loving, his peace, his generosity. And tonight is the 5th seminar in this delicious little series we have going of John Morton live at Prana. And I heard myself saying when I was preparing my notes, when God calls, John steps up. So here he is, John Morton.
Thank you. I'm first of all seeing if I'm being heard out there. Please come in, make yourself at home. It's the traveler's house. So all who come in love and light, you're welcome. And even if you somehow manage to just get here, maybe because your car ran out of gas out there or something, we still welcome you in love and light, and then we'll bring you into what that consciousness is. So we're going to also have a moment of peace. Is that still on our program? Okay. That's all right, because I'm paying attention. So I saw it here, and it's actually something very lovely that comes from John Roger in rivers and rivers of what he's brought forward over the years to share his consciousness and who he is as a way shower and a mystical traveler. So we're going to hear right now. Hopefully you can see it. Maybe it's on that screen for you folks over here, and I think it'll just show up on your screen if you're on a screen right now.
If we really came into one accord, what could that be like? Could you?
Heaven on earth. Christ living amongst us, in us, with us, and walking with us. God would come here to live instead of being in heaven. Because this would be heaven.
Well, perhaps what you're giving us through Windermere and the images I see in the video and just being there is part of it. Like you're giving us the images through that. That's what occurred to me.
Giving the opportunity of the images.
Yeah.
But people have to fulfill them out of their own creation. How they fit in. They determine that because the kingdom of heaven lets you do that. So far, there's only one thing that's not being allowed in the spirit up to this point. That's gravity changing. We're all still here. They allow us to overcome gravity through propulsion, but not just by a natural flow. So it must be okay that all people have all their experiences with all their levels of consciousness, because it's being permitted, it's allowed. And if it's not allowed, there's nothing for me to say about it, because spirit will stop it, like gravity. But so far, the Lord of creation says, you're still choosing. And the footnote is choose wisely. Not choose egoically, not choose emotionally, not choose mentally. But maybe go to all those to get your information And then take it to God and say, God, if you were choosing, what would you choose? And then take that choice. Because that's going to be the eternal choice.
And I see the young lady who asked that question is in the house tonight, so that's nice. So some things keep moving along and revolving in our own way, so there's another minute, there's another hour, another day, another week. But at some point, we spiral out of here. There's a book that's been, Paul Kay has done the audio version of it recently, so now that's available. But it's called The Way Out book. So if you just want to listen to the words, but it's coining a phrase that has to do with our destiny on this planet. And of course, the way out is in. So that's our movement is doing that very actively. I'm inspired to bring in consciousness and light of understanding, so if you're open to that, here goes. Lord God, where you find us right now, we open ourselves up to your understanding so that we may behold your eternal truths, that they come to us in ways that we fully receive. And we bring our mind to an open state, a willing state to receive you, to welcome you in the way that you are. And in this land, we find there is reflection. And some of that reflection is what we're not, and what we've known as temptations, as those things that have been wayward, discord, disturbance, detours, and the like. And whatever that is, we also take in your blessing so that we may let go of what we consider as past, which is what is done, what we've moved into an experience that then is our knowing in greater ways of who you are. So we may embrace all of what is in the past and the experience that we have brought forward through our existence. And through your blessing, we receive it in full so that we are in a state of cooperation. And in this cooperation, our consciousness is lifted into a higher state. And whatever is found at this time within us that is resistance, especially in the ways that we call judgment, and often that functions through a form of denial or a fear that we cannot take in our existence and rise through it, using all of it in this consciousness of the beloved that embraces all, loves all, forgives all. And so we take in your grace, your majesty, your understanding that this is the great celebration in spirit, the Alleluia, the glory, the Beyosh Beshan. Okay, so I'm going to start with what I have, and the lines are open or something like that if you want to make more of your questions or concerns. Maybe they're your concerns that you might have. I'll start out with one that's come in from our friends who are tuned in on the internet tonight. It says, in my service to the Spanish communities, I experience from them so much Christ and enthusiasm and willingness to do classes and to participate. Is there anything you would like to share with us about South America at this time? Well, I can share that it's south of here. I know that's maybe not even cute, but let's say that I intended it to be cute. So we're connected, and if nothing else, we're connected by something called a landmass. And then some people refer to this as the Western Hemisphere, and then that would mean there's an Eastern Hemisphere. But it seems like we hear more about the Western Hemisphere and not much about the Eastern Hemisphere. Do you ever notice that? It's like, why is that? Well, maybe because we're west and somebody said, go west. So some of us have. But the reality is you can keep going west and then you're in the Eastern Hemisphere. So there's something about that whatever we're thinking is new or undiscovered or yet to be uncovered or something like that. These things are all in motion. Well, all I have to say is God bless our neighbors and friends to the south, and that we invite any of you who are at this time in those regions to send your blessings forward, that we may all partake. And the other part that you asked is already done. So this person is just asking for your light and blessing, please, for some tooth surgery next week. So if you've got any tooth surgery coming up, it's going out. And maybe it's even unplanned at this point, but because life is like that at times. You win some, you lose some. But the good news is they're working on the science of replacement, and so I'm just borrowing a page from what John Roger revealed to us, that about the only thing that's not been allowed to be changed in this world is gravity. So that means everything else, the spirit, is in some way open to change. So maybe you can actually lose a tooth and get a better one and think in those terms. Maybe some of you have been tuned into the Olympics. It's one of my favorite forms of entertainment. But in any case, there's a young man from South Africa who's, I think actually, he was on the track again today. I didn't see it, but he has had his legs missing since birth. And so he has, what are the devices called? Blades, there you go. So his nickname right now is Blade Runner. But he has about at the level of just above the knee some extensions, and he's a world-class 400-meter runner, and today he was running on the relay team for South Africa. And some people were protesting because they thought it was an unfair advantage that he had. Because the legs have spring, and I'm sure if we weighed the lower portion of his leg and maybe the lower portion of our leg, we'd say, your leg weighs less. That's not fair. And some part of me says, who cares? I'm glad that he's running fast with his legs such as they are. So in any case, that's just something to consider, that if you look upon your life in some way that it has loss, and that you still hold that there's a move you can make, like a wrestling Olympic move, where you turn a fall into, that's a name that escapes me right now, but it's like you turn over, so now you're on top. A reversal, there we go. So that you do a reversal of your fortune. You've probably heard of that. But that idea that everything can be used for upliftment, and sometimes what's necessary in there is plant the seed, so that somebody can say, I don't want just another leg, I want a better leg. And I don't want just another eye, I want a better eye. And to consider that in some way, Spirit's allowing that. And that would be part of manifesting heaven on earth, is to be those who are fertile ground for things that are heaven on earth. And then to consider that you're in the first line of responsibility to make that something that would be. And I got the word, so I didn't have to rely on my memory. Christ living amongst us. So let's consider who the Christ is, that one who is anointed and full of the Spirit as a direct line of the energy and consciousness of God. So it comes into the flesh, and the capacity of that flesh to be what that is. So maybe we need to move our capacity up so that we're not so restricted, we're not so unwilling to behold what the Spirit has to bring forward in this world while we're here. And one of the things that I see that we're doing here is waiting, sometimes spelled W-A-D-I-N-G, because of the depth of what we created, and we're not quite up to walking on it yet, but that's one of the qualities that's attributed to the Christ, is that ability to walk upon whatever surface there is, and to step up and rise up in what this is. God would come here to live instead of being in heaven. Okay. So God would be what? Our neighbor? Or maybe our housemate? Or maybe your beloved? Like, think of God as your spouse. That applies. Or maybe bring to mind the person in your life who has the most difficulty with you, and to think of them as God incarnate. And see if you can get your understanding around that. Okay. That's a good beginning. So here's a request for a blessing to find a job. Anybody else in the house looking for a job, or wherever you are? All right, there's a fair number of you. Well, I have some background in my education. So I took career counseling as a specialty at one point. And then I was doing career counseling and that type of thing. But what makes that relevant is that I can do something about it here, tonight, with you, or maybe it's tomorrow morning where you are already. That would be somewhere like Australia. Is there anybody online from Australia? You can't check it, okay. Well, okay, then Australia, if you're watching, listening, I'd like to know if you're awake. And have you had your orange juice yet, or something like that? So part of it is that you make yourself useful. So we just confirmation. That's how fast that works. It's Good Morning, Australia. And that you do something useful. There's lots of opportunities for that. Being around John Roger all these years, one of the things I heard him say about people who come forward to do this work, not just necessarily in staff, but yes, staff, but also those who volunteer to do this work, that people create their own jobs. And you think about that, like, what do you mean? Like, they go in and say, I'm going to create a job description, and then I want you to hire me in that new job description. But sometimes people actually did that, so I watched that happen. But also, it's just the idea that you have the ability to move forward in what you're to do. And that there is also preparation from Spirit already forward, already waiting for you to step in what you're to do. So to consider there's something that you can do that's helpful, and that helpfulness may be something appreciated by somebody, and they may want to contribute toward your well-being, toward what you need and what would serve you in relation to what you provide in return. And sometimes it's good to do that on a voluntary basis. And people have found that what was a hobby, what was an interest, became a tremendous success. There's a lot of people that have done this, if you just follow the energy. So it's important to connect your heart to what you're doing in your work. One of my favorite quotes is from a guy named Khalil Gibran. Maybe I didn't pronounce that the way he likes, but if he wants to pronounce differently, he could come here and say, I want to pronounce like this. Your work is your love made manifest. So to have that idea that the work you're going to do, and it is a calling, the responsibility that we all have, that one of the ways we know we're living in the spiritual life is that we make the world better by our presence. So how would we be doing this? How are we making the world better? Because we're on the way to becoming better beings. Right now we're occupied. That's a movement going on. We're occupied by the human physical level. That's how gravity works. Like, just try to get out of here and see, like, get off the planet. Oh, I know, you say, well, I just end it all. That's how I do it. But let's just consider that that doesn't really end it all, it just starts something. And sometimes it starts something, if you really thought about it, you wouldn't want to start that. You had other ways of starting something much better than attempting to end your life in the world, such that you have to come back and repair that hole, and it is kind of a hole, and then pick up where you left off. So here's a key, and this is a direct quote from the person looking for a job. So grateful for all the good and grace in my life. That's a big key, because it generates a positive energy towards what can call you to greater. So if you're in appreciation, then greater good is coming to you. You are attracting greater good, including greater work and greater ability to do that work. A while back, John Roger told all of us, the willingness to do gives the ability to do. So if you don't have the ability, have the willingness to acquire that ability, to develop that ability. So that's another thing going on right now in the Olympics. It's called world records. It's called coming in first, and maybe for the first time. And then, I've heard several people say, I'll see you in Rio, because whatever happened generated inspiration. And then there are people who are saying, well, what happened in Beijing, where the last Olympics was, inspired them to come back. And some of those stories are, you did it. And some of those stories, you didn't do it again. And even with all of that, with all the disappointments and discouragements that comes along, it's important to realize there's a perfection in this world. And it's a spiritual perfection, so get that real clear. So if your mind is looking at it in what you can see and what happens to you in the ways that we perceive, the spiritual perfection is larger than that. I might have questions from the internet, so if there are any, just go ahead and bring them up. See how fast that works? Or something like that. Why is love so unavailable? And there's something because of... Maybe they didn't want me to read this next word, because they made it... but you see, I brought something. I don't know if it's activating my rods or my cones, but here it goes. See, whatever it is, it's like my mind is like like scrambling it or something like that. So that I'm looking at it like that's not important. It's not even important to put it out to this group. So I'm letting that go. This is a lie that love is not available. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest lies there is. So you need to decide something, whoever wrote this. So I'm going to bust you upside the head or something like that. More like the heart. You need to make a decision about yourself. Is your true nature, is your inherent nature, and is what you come from, your source, your father, your mother, however you look at this. Is it love? Is it truth? Is it wisdom? Is it goodness? You need to put a yes or a no on that. And I know the answer. It's called yes. And if you don't believe me, then go ahead. Lean into it. Because the traveler's going to assist you to get the experience. Because you brought it to the traveler. Not in a mean way, because we don't work that way. In the way you need. And sometimes it's right up to the level of what you can handle. Or what you think, especially what you think you can handle. So you start opening up sometimes in desperation. But you open up. And when you do that, it's going to get in. Because it's going to let out whatever is disturbing you and deceiving you to think love's not available. It has nothing to do with your existence. So you can forget about that. You don't have to remember it, dig it up again, go find the bones in the closet. You don't have to do that stuff. Doesn't matter what it is. If the love's available, ask for it. Do whatever you need to do to, right now, invite the Lord. So this is up for whoever needs this. So I'm putting myself on the line. Okay, Lord, I'm asking, I'm praying, I'm commanding, demanding whatever it is, whatever would bring forward the love, because that's what my heart needs. It's what we resonate in this movement with. That wasn't too rough, was it? Okay. Let's see. A group of 25 classmates are going to skydive out of, somewhere on Friday. Please send us light. Did I send you some common sense? So remember, when the light comes in, it doesn't necessarily mean, would you agree with me and support what I think? That isn't necessarily the light action. So if you ask for the light, be prepared for what the light is going to reveal to you and radiate to you. Go, well, I didn't want it that way. It's going to help you. So I'm not saying this is not like a scare tactic. It's just be aware of what it is and in some way have a willingness to take on what you do in the fullness of the responsibility of what that is. And if it's in your heart to do it, that's really all you need to do. But we're talking about your heart, not your opinion, not trying to please somebody, or some emotional kind of worship that gets in there. But it's what your heart, the truth that resonates in your being, calls you into it. Then you go. That's my point of view. You do whatever that is, however that comes out, with trust in God knowing exactly what's going on. And then it's not about what happens to your body, although we have some responsibility there. So I understand the request. Would you help with protection? Would you make sure the parachute opens? Would you make sure the winds are friendly? All these things, that I don't land in a cactus and... There's details, right? There are. But some of that is to take the responsibility for what makes good sense and to understand that, in some way the negative power has a job to detour, to take you off your path. Like what kind of job is that? To make sure if you're certain and you are functioning and acting in the certainty of your soul, that's where your loyalty is, to serve in what is serving at the soul level. Is there room so I can have an ice cream now and then? Yes, there's room for that. Chocolate sauce? Yeah. Can I have some of those sprinkled things? Hey, you do it. If you're going to do it, enjoy it. Even if it's falling to your so-called death, enjoy it. They don't call it free fall for nothing. This is a free fall. No price. Oh, there's probably a price for, on the way up, but you might be able to arrange it so I owe you. Or talk to Uncle Larry, he'll take care of it. I seem to have a pattern of attracting men who are unavailable. Here we go with it must be unavailable night or something. Unavailable in one form or another. Let's see. Made in God's image. Okay. What does that mean? Unavailable. Because you need to come to the source. That's one part of it. Please, would you offer any insights and assistance with working through the pattern? Well, you can always ask, are you available? And then you could have a list that's, are you available for the things you want the man to be available for? And are you unavailable for things you don't want the man to be available for? Sometimes you forget both sides of this. It's a kind of a pro and con list, which is a good way to get into any kind of a decision. Just put up whatever appears to you and be willing to check it out so that you can ask questions. Maybe you have an available interview or something like that. Also, please send light to my financial situation and continued abundance and new opportunities for creating increased income. Okay, so part of that is do your life in such a way as you create value and then you create more value. And to understand that what's in your heart is something that creates value. That I look at you, I look at all of us as having genius. Something that's a unique gift, a God gift, that when we really reveal it and let it come out into our expression into the world, then it creates value. It's not necessarily material, financial value, so that's not the most important value. It's what satisfies your experience here, completes it, what brings about your fulfillment while you're in this world. And often it is through the discovery and then the working out in the world, the expression in the world of what are your gifts. And that can become something then that's appreciated, so that material prosperity, abundance, wealth can come into that flow of what you're creating that is recognized in the world as value. But the first place to seek value is with God. Find what God values first. And that doesn't necessarily mean it translates to material success. That doesn't mean it doesn't. So there's not a contradiction there. Sometimes people consider that to value God is to deny or renounce the world. It's not set up that way, because this is a place that has tremendous value when we cooperate. How do I develop the strength to hold in the positivity? Because when you hold in the positivity, you develop strength. Okay? So, hold in the positivity, then in some way you have a fall, something pulls you off, go for the positivity. And keep holding with that, and you're going to develop strength from doing that. It's automatic. I'm in a situation where negativity is present and being expressed. Hello, it's called the world. But may I go on? Rather than reacting against the situation and thereby adding to the negativity. Okay, so I missed something there. I didn't miss it. Except there's a question mark on the end, but this is a statement. So I'll just read it to you so you can hear it verbatim. I'm in a situation where negativity is present and being expressed rather than reacting against the situation and thereby adding to the negativity. Question mark.
It's a compound question.
I explained your life, Kevin, and you would understand this. But I'm glad. I'm glad to have translators, interpreters in the house to help. So it's simply that your consciousness has power as a creator all the time. So wherever you place your focus, be careful and know that energy follows what you look at, what you think about, where you place your attitude. So what you're looking for becomes important. If you're looking for upliftment, what's positive, what's going to help, that's going to come about. Will you be tested in that? More or less in this world, for sure. So plan on it, get ready. There will be a test, right? Will it come at inconvenient times? Probably. When you least want it, when you're most vulnerable, you can create whatever scenario. And often people dramatize these things to justify choosing the negative. Well, you see, I'm so depressed and upset because of what they did to me. It's like they did what they did. You have choices. Do you want to be uplifting? Do you want to be helping? Or do you want to be disturbed, upset? Make your choice. And awareness is part of it. So the awareness can be, what's going on? I'm not happy. I'm disturbed. That's awareness. Would you like to change that? Yes, I would. Can you look into your situation now and see some way to create upliftment? And often it begins in very simple ways, like being aware that you're breathing. Just like right now, being aware that you're breathing, and this may be relative, but it's something that occurs without real effort. Even if someone says, I have to do it with effort. Okay. But could that effort be even more powerful, so that you can be thankful that you still have reserves, you still have choices. So no matter how difficult your situation is, there are positive choices, and it's important to be looking at those. Have you noticed that when it comes to letting go and letting God, we bring up patience? Okay, then I just pointed it out to you if you didn't notice that. And then what's the patience about? I'm demonstrating. Like stay in a place of openness instead of it should have happened by now. Or it shouldn't be like this. It is like this. Change your view. That's one of the reasons Spirit functions through acceptance, is to give you an opportunity to refocus, to adjust how you're looking at the situation so you look to the good. You find the good. And when you find that good, increase it. Let your consciousness be part of the greater good, so that you become a movement of spirit through you and into the world. And that becomes something that's very uplifting in your consciousness. It's also going to give you an opportunity to release yourself. Now, somebody asked about patterns, but to release yourself from these negative patterns, also sometimes referred to as karma. But you can have positive karma, so it isn't necessarily negative in the results that come from what you're doing in your consciousness, what you're holding as a focus. Are you getting anything out of this so far? Okay, so this is a movement. It's alive. It's been going on for, well, really, whatever eons are, it's been going on. So we're doing the latest chapter. And just a reminder that we call upon the Spirit in a very direct way. So we speak direct to God in the ability that we have to do that. That you don't need an intermediary because you already have one. So that means that the need is already fulfilled. You have the consciousness in you that whatever you call it, that's not important. So we call it the traveler, we call it the Christ. You go, well, what's the difference? That's not important right now because it works in a whole, it works in an integration. But what it is it brings you, as you can handle it, as you're willing and open, into a direct experience. And that direct experience becomes, you are what it is. So there's no, I'm over here, thou, and you're over there, I, or something like that. It becomes an integration of consciousness. My choice, or my question, is about making the most loving choices. Good question. Excellent question. I'm experiencing choices being presented to me now, and some of those choices I feel. See, now there's where you get in trouble. Because your feelings, I'm not trying to be insulting here, but maybe, you might say, you're insulting my feelings. You hurt my feelings inside. No. That's something goes on inside you because you're attached. So detach. Release your feelings from self-imposed imprisonment and restrictions. And open yourself up. And the finishing of that was, I feel some obligation to choose, a sense of obligation. My intention is to make the most loving choices that are in alignment with the highest good of all concerned. How can I do this best? You're in practice. This is a practicum. This is a laboratory. This is a classroom. It makes room for error. So it makes room, not that. That didn't work. It makes room for that. So make room for it. So the key is keep going and refining where you want to go. So you become more and more attuned in your choices. There's a kind of a dis-ease that goes like, I know it's not this, but I don't know what it is. And I know it's not that, but I don't know what it is. So the dis-ease is, well, I don't know what it is, but there's a whole lot of what it isn't. Okay, then that's your life experience telling you, you've done this, And just because it comes in a wave doesn't mean it's your level of concern. So often the choices that show up in the immediate are the law of reversibility. What does that mean? You put it in motion, and now it's coming back. So what you sow, you are reaping. And it may be in a state where I can pass on what I've created. I can see the grace. I can see that even though this is in my life or is flowing into my life as a present situation or circumstance, that I really would like something better. Knowing that about yourself. And just being open to that it could be better, and that you pass on engaging or being involved in the current situation. And so sometimes it's just a matter of waiting for the current flow of the karma to pass through. And do you have that patience? That's sometimes not the easiest option to choose. I know that. So that's from the voice of experience. So impatience isn't necessarily your wisest friend, but it may at times be wise, like when the house is burning. And then people sometimes go back to get something and they don't come back out. I've heard these stories. Have you heard these stories? They come out of the burning house and go, oh, I forgot the photo albums. Leave the photo albums. We'll make new photos. You know. But what is it? It's like sometimes that's how the karma works. And you go, well, it's such an instant. Like, why would they make it that more important than their next breath? Well, if they understood, are those photos more important than your next breath? The wisdom would come in, no. Then leave them, let them go. Let that be something that you give up. It's part of the price of liberating yourself from what you created. But the house is burning. You're liberating yourself. This is part of your liberation. So go to the trust in God, especially with anything that's past, because you can't change that. It's over. What you can change is the relationship you have to it. So if you have disturbance and upset and judgment, you can shift that. And that'll put you in a whole new place where you can clear it. And how that goes spiritually is it comes to it as though it never happened. It's wiped clean. I don't even remember it. They don't even remember it. Right? It's wiped clean. So how is that? You come into another state where that doesn't exist. If we understood this level, let's say some of us do, when we just go into the understanding and we ask for it, then we understand that as you change the frequency of this world, it goes invisible. And a new frequency comes into visibility. Those who have the eyes to see. Then how does that work? Well, ask for it. Ask for higher attunement. And part of that is, would you let go of the way you relate so that you see disturbance and you see fault and you see criticism. Stop seeing that way. Instead, see, they love me. It's like, well, they just said they hate you. And I go, I translate that into they love me. How do you do that? Well, when I look into their heart, they really love me, but on the way out it gets mistranslated into I hate you. But it's actually a mistranslation of what's in their heart. When you start seeing that way, then you're going to be living in grace and you're going to be invoking heaven on earth. How are we doing with the internet over there?
She's speaking so well.
Okay. Can you focus on that? sure. To be continued. Thank you for your loving, caring, sharing. Right back at you. How might I return to the present more quietly? That's a good question. Because you're bringing up something maybe you didn't realize you're bringing up, but here's what you're bringing up that I find. That we're multidimensional consciousness, and we're learning how to function in various consciousness. So just to give you some kind of crude idea of it, it's like we function physically, emotionally, mentally, psychically, spiritually, all at once. So in a way, what you're saying is, how can I come more quietly into the presence? Because that's often how we enter. We enter in through stillness. We enter in through the nature of the spirit. So there's a translation of ourself from the physical, material, psychic selves into the spirit. And one of the ways we do that is we hold our consciousness into what we call the name, the sound, the vibration. We hold it by intention. I'm falling upon you, Lord. I'm calling upon you, Lord. See, that intention is really what is most important. Just that pure intention of your heart, that you would put yourself up as an offering. You put yourself in a position, however you do that. Body posture is somewhat important, but at some point, it's not about body posture. It doesn't matter what shape your body is in. There's another level you can go to regardless. And then it doesn't matter what shape your mind is, or any of these psychic levels, because you can keep going, you can keep translating it so you move into the spirit and gain that conscious awareness. And the more you learn how to go into these G forces, that's another way of saying, the gravitational pull is upon you so that you pass out, you don't have conscious awareness as you move into the spirit. But go anyway. Go because the traveler consciousness from its end through your invitation. So get that clear. You invite it through all the forms that we've identified. And there are other ways it identifies itself. So we're not locked into an organization or a book or what was written or what was said. It's a living spirit. It's dynamic. It's here. So open yourself into that attunement and let it present you as a still, clear form of what that is. One approach is that you merge with what it is. You become one with what it is rather than trying to translate it down, because that's what we're doing. We're in that. We're translated down spirit in human form. So rather than the idea is that, we have to bring the spirit to the earth, go into the spirit and just stay conscious and aware and strong as you bring that into the world. So maybe you're the first. You're not, but the first in your existence. So in your line, you say the Father and I are one. When you've seen me, when you're seeing me, you're seeing the Father, because the energy is all integrated and it's all on. It's lit up. There's nothing asleep. Oh, it says, any tricks or keys? Yes. Call upon God's name morning, noon, and night. pray, being in the communion of what that means, so that you're walking, you're talking, you're in the movement. So you would do that physically, you would do it inside all of your consciousness. There's harmony with the Spirit. That's what we're working on. Read your discourses. Okay, from the internet. I seem to have a pattern night. We'll make a dress. Of going into fear and flight. Okay, that's a very primordial kind of response. Fight or flight, fright or flight, something like that. I'm afraid. So I go into a sense of attack. It's either me or you, kind of stuff. And the reality is, it's you and you. It's us and us. So when you've done it unto whoever that is, or whatever that is, then you've sent that up. And is that how you would want to conduct yourself in relation to the beloved? So this is a tall order when we're walking around on the planet. How do we keep ourselves in the consciousness of the beloved when it appears the beloved isn't actually acting very much like the beloved? How do we do that? With great courage, great strength, great openness. And if we don't succeed, we keep going. Even though I really want the next phase of expansion and truly see the blessing I go into, what is the best way to work with fear or flight pattern? Embrace it. So rather than being paralyzed in fear or something like that, where you're in contraction, that you breathe it in. You see if you can get more air in your lungs while you're afraid. Another way that works really well is eye contact. So make eye contact and then make contact. Just take them in so that there's an attitude in the fear of, I can't take them in. I have to run or kill them or like something on that order. It's like, no, you could take them in. You could embrace what it is in such a way as it's no more. Because if you can take it in to the depth of your soul, it can't be in two places. What does that mean? It means you could take whatever is their disturbance from them, so they're no longer disturbed. It's been done. We're blessed to have Michael Hayes with us tonight. So I'm just turning if at any point you have something you want to contribute, please do. Okay. Aha. How do I deal with my birth family? Grow up. That's when you arrived in your family, just consider your assignment was to grow up. Get on your own 2 feet. I did that a long time ago. Okay, keep going. Be resourceful, be responsible, become somebody who is bringing great good to your family that can be shared. That your family has a good name because of you. So it doesn't matter what your family name is. If you put your works and your life that brings great good You change the family name. By your works, you're known. So do those kinds of things that would be associated with good. And even if your family accuses you of being disloyal and disinheriting you or things like that, you can still put your good on whatever that is and make the family name full and rich. It is very challenging to talk with my mother, who tells me what she hates. Then that challenges to tell your mother what you love about what she hates. Maybe you do that in small doses. So it's not necessarily your life vocation or even your assignment. Because I'm reminded that the Christ let us know the fools put themselves in a position to not be helped. So sometimes it's like, okay, my assignment is not to go down into the pit just because you have chosen that as your place of residence. That it's not an assignment because you're there, I must go there. And this is not just geographical location we're talking about. We're talking about what people do with their lives and the energy fields that they create. You're not necessarily assigned to those. So take a look. Sometimes the karma is such that there's a working out, and you know that inside, and if you don't know it, it'll be brought to you and shown to you one way or another. It's better to get it on your own rather than to be dragged into your karma or something like that. The other difficult, challenging situation is talking with her sister-in-law that twists my words into something negative. Well, maybe that's her assignment. Like she was born to do that. Like God would make a person who was born to... Why would God do such a thing? To have you work it out. You mean God would make a person who couldn't help but do that to me? Right. Until you neutralize it. Until it no longer works on you. Then whatever that is, it dissolves itself or goes on to somebody else. So if you'd like that, I suggest that you learn how to return the good. And it's like, well, how long does this go on? Until you're free. See, but that's good. You mean my destiny is to be free of this? Right. Well, how long do I have to put up with this? I don't know. How long are you going to live? And if you don't have that willingness to go through this, then that's often where the karma is. You don't have the patience, you're not exercising the strength to get through it. So trust yourself that you can transform whatever the negativity is, and I'm sure the list would go on, that you would have other forms of people or situations that bring negativity to you. It's not unfair. It's just what you need to go through as a learning, growing process that's going to make you a better person. Any suggestions on how to keep love centered?
One of the things that can help deal with the family karma is to recognize, start off, when you're starting to have a hard time, know very truly inside yourself that you wanted this. That before you're born, you're not shoved into a family, you choose into it. And you set up the design of your family very particularly and very carefully because it seeds your karma. It seeds your opportunities very directly for you and sets you in play to maximize your time on this earth by getting to confront those things that are most valuable for you to overcome. most of the time when we're having a really hard time, we're viewing our experience as that we are at the effect of their behaviors, the effect of what they do or don't do, the effect of how they treat us. So by recognizing that you not only wanted the situation but created the situation, you move away from effect to cause. The moment you come into that understanding that you are cause and also effect, you start to come into the creative authority over the experience. That allows you to have perspective, and you automatically rise above the situation and gain a different kind of neutrality. In that moment, the clarity of spirit can merge with your human awareness and allow you to see it as the spirit sees it, and that's can allow the instantaneous shift of karma. And that's when grace comes most fully present for us.
Yeah. How can I keep love-centered? You are love-centered. So when you're out of balance, that just means you're out of your center or off. You have awareness to help you know that. When you're contracting, when you're shaky, when you're not certain, when you're afraid, when you're upset, angry. These are ways that you know I'm not in my love center. But take a moment to change that. By disengaging from a reactive state to go into a neutral state, which often then allows you to be more engaged and aware of the positive, uplifting state, which is dynamic. It has the power to love all. It's God's love. That's your love center. The same love that is God is your love. And that's an all-powerful, unconditional loving. So just take a moment to shift. And sometimes what that means is disengage or stop how you're processing, how you're responding. Lots of ways to do that. And then she says, I've been sending them prayers for their happiness. Smart. Because when you do that, it comes through you and blesses your house. So when you get good karma, it's like, well, is that cheating? Like it's not fair for me to send light and love to other people because I'm just doing it so I get some. No, that's entirely fair. That's the law. You do good, you love, then that's what you're reaping. It may take a while to get through what you've set up otherwise, which you've also created. So don't be surprised if it's not steadfast and everlasting in this form called this world. But you can walk through this world in your love center. You can move through every moment because it's with you. It's not, pushing the eject button and then going out and hiding from you somewhere. Some people kind of have it dramatized that way. My question relates to our son experiencing chronic fatigue. If there is any further vigilance I can benefit. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not qualified to talk to you as a medical doctor or whatever that means. But my own personal experience and survey of this world, tells me that these things are often an opportunity to be more engaged in what nurtures, what thrives, what's vital, and to look at what's holding in the system. Often what's been done to the body system in some form of what we've taken in that we have not eliminated. So we've taken in, I'll call it toxicity of some kind, and we haven't released that. That's a very simple thing to say, like, oh, okay, so if I'm toxic, then my energy in some way is being blocked or like let's say in a parasitic form, and that could go into viruses and bacteria that they could function as, they take the energy that would be naturally yours if you raised your vibration. So raising the vibration is getting what's dysfunctional or in some way disturbing to your system, moving that out. You know, is it things like, well, can I still have sugar? It's like, that's something for you to decide. But let's consider that if we can't change gravity, could we change sugar so that it becomes something vital? Hey, if I can think of it, let's just consider that that could be done. Like, or could we change our system so that it relates to these things in vitality, so that we positively adapt? That's what I see is by far the more effective way to deal with disease, is to become stronger, more vital, regardless of what's in the system. So it's no longer a poison, and that we develop ways to transmute and transform what gets in the system that isn't allowing us to have high, powerful energy that we could. So, like, give me something practical to work with there. If my son has, what did you call it, chronic fatigue, that his natural state is to be vital. So keep going. Don't give up on your son. Like, chronic means you'll die with it. No, don't hold that. If that's not what you want for your son, and consider you're in a position to contribute to his life, that you've been sent as somebody that will assist his clearing, his balancing, his healing, then hold out for what that would be. That's like, well, then he would have more energy. I know he can have more energy. Then keep seeing that, keep going. But also that there's something in him that needs to turn towards this. And with God, all things are possible. So there's a reason why we can put that forward as a blessing and a light that can go to your son. And yes, we're doing that now, because the light has the ability to tune into who this is. And you also, because these kinds of things that go on between the bonds that are between father, mother, child, they're powerful, powerful bonds. So they deserve your full attention. That they're working in ways that help all, nurture all, bless all. To have that attitude and no matter how long it takes. And you go, well, that tries my patience. Okay, but develop your patience, and also that you reach out. Keep going so that you're contacting and connecting with the assistance that's available to your son, to your family, to this world. And that you may be someone who is a pioneer in whatever this is, discovering what's needed. Well, she asks about any further vigilance. Yes, look for ways so that you relate to your son in joy, in appreciation, that you're glad to see him. You're glad he's in your life. And I know that may be difficult with what he's dealing with and how you are part of what he's dealing with. That's your assignment. I didn't give it to you. But you're letting us know you have this willingness and this interest. So relate to him in ways that he knows you're glad he is in your life, that he gets there. And if you miss out on that on occasion, that's probably an understatement, right? Then just take it there. Like, Like that's the moment where you say, well, I know we haven't had the best day or the day that we ideally wanted or something, but let's get there now. And share your love, share your joy, find a way to laughter, find a way to have fun, so that he's having fun. That he doesn't just have chronic fatigue and that defines his life. This doesn't define his life. Yeah, he's a child who wants to enjoy and play. That's who all children are.
To the person that sharing came from, there's a missionary basic self that's gone to the child. So that'll help to strengthen the fortitude in the body. The color silver is being extended here to the child. The silver works as a neutralizer of magnetic energy fields. This is a bright silver color. The child's probably oversensitive to electromagnetic fields, so I'd be really watchful about the amount of exposure the child has to that. Some of us are not adapted properly to the change of magnetic frequencies that's going on this planet very rapidly, because there's some massive increase in electromagnetic frequency going on very suddenly, and our evolution hasn't really caught up with that. And so for certain people, it blows them out in ways that other people appear unaffected. And it's pretty much along with what he said. There's light going to the liver and the body, and suggestion to really follow up on what John talked about. Always look to, when we cleanse ourselves, we prepare our system to work better, just like in an automobile when they clean out the engine and change the oil, everything works better. That's it.
Can you talk about healing, specifically the technique of taking the disturbance, disease, conflict into the soul and out, and or anything else about healing the physical, emotional, mental levels? Blessings to you, God is good, with 3 exclamation points. That's like bringing an apple to your teacher, you know. God is good. It does work. Because at some level, it opens up your own realization, even if you said, well, I was just kidding, but I'm having an experience. It's like, okay, yeah. There's a faith opportunity that we all have while we're in the body, and it's like a threshold that we need to move through so that we convert ourselves into the spiritual reality. And we can do that by going into the Spirit. So that's one way, and then with your awareness of doing that while you're in the body, then you bring back blessing. So we call that spiritual exercise, exercising the Spirit. It's a form of worship, and so it brings in atonement, and it opens up for you to convert your capacity. So your capacity increases. And you start putting in the vibrations in the body into the cell level, so certain conditions can't be in that vibration field. There's some very basic things, the attunement of the cells so that they have the vital nutrients. I just got parked into, what was that? End of the world spoof film by Stanley Kubrick. Dr. Strangelove, yeah. Where the guy was talking about bodily fluids. And it's like, yeah, the guy may have been mad and, strange dude, but in any way he was saying something actually truthful about what we need, that we need to do those things that raise the vitality, and spirit is the source of vitality. So by moving our consciousness and also petitioning, so that we petition and move our own consciousness into the spirit, there's a level of that that's more effective when we do it ourselves. So that we get above in conscious awareness to be able to look into the existence and see what are the holding patterns, the restrictive patterns that are still coming down into the body level. So the karmic patterns can be seen spiritually in the wisdom to adjust that. We can't adjust anything that releases us from what we need. So the experience that we need in the psychic material existence, in the being a human being, we still need that. So whatever that is that would awaken the knowledge, that must be done. So if it's in a life pattern, and that pattern is set up such that it's a necessary experience, that we don't change that. What we can change is what's unnecessary experience. And that's often in what we've accrued to ourselves from the past existence, that by the law, it comes to us. But by what we've gained in experience and wisdom, particularly as we move our consciousness forward and take advantage of bringing in the higher experience and translating that into our human existence. So we wouldn't do these things again. And we've learned. And because we have learning present and intact in our conscious field, then these other experiences can be released. You have anything you want to add on that? Okay. How does one know or gauge when tolerating pain is a stressful or emotional challenging situation is actually detrimental to one's well-being or is actually beneficial for one's highest good? So the gain of pain or something like that. There is an opportunity in every single experience without exception, including pain and suffering and torture and whatever you want to bring up, to gain from it, to lift from it. Go there. Keep that in mind, or however you keep it, so that you realize, okay, whatever this is, I can embrace it, and I'm big enough. I'm big enough to embrace this. So whatever the boogeyman is, or maybe it's a boogie woman these days, you can handle it. You're built to handle it. I'm in preparation for a webcast that we're going to be doing later. I don't know the exact date. I think maybe it's August 20. No? I was going to say the 25th, 18th. Okay, thank you. It's called Not One Soul Will Be Lost. So I've been looking at some of the materials John Roger has brought to us over the years. And if you've been around MSI, you know you've heard Not One Soul Will Be Lost, and you've heard it many, many times. And what I'm seeing is also that it's like the other side of that coin often was, you're never given anything you can't handle from the Spirit. So if we just understood what are we saying here? We can't be destroyed, so what's the fear about? So once you identify yourself as a soul, you're not lost. That means you cannot be destroyed. You cannot be taken. You cannot be compromised. So there's the issue. Well, I'm not identifying. I'm forgetting I'm a soul. Yes. Well, a practical way to understand that is you can handle the situation you're in. So handle it. I know that's easy to say. But do the best you can. Now, not later. Now, do something. And often that's where we get in trouble. We're lagging. We're not responding. We're holding back. We're withholding. When we could choose to love and we're saying, no, I can't. That's where you're giving your power over to. I can't take what they're doing. I can't love. That's a lie. Even if you say it and it seems like it can't be true, go ahead and say it. Those are powerful words. I love you. Can you talk about healing of taking the... Oh, we just did that. Okay, thank you. So I demonstrated I could do that. I'm trying to... this light to me and my cat. I'm trying this light to me and my cat. Question. What can you tell us about alcohol, drinking, and spirit? You slurs your words, and it's like something that whatever that is in the system that would be able to handle it, at some point it becomes something that now you're handling whatever the toxicity is in having too much. So that can be, well, I lose my balance, or I lose my inhibitions, or I gain fantasies I didn't know I had, or I open up past fields that I prefer to, keep in the closet, at least for the time being, until I'm in a situation where I can clear that. So it's a matter of, it's not that alcohol is evil and we should try to kill it or something like that. But it's a matter of how do you handle it, and do you handle it well? And maybe the best approach to that is not at all. And you go, well, I can't help it, I'm addicted. Okay, it's probably, if you weren't addicted to that, you'd be addicted to something else, and maybe there's a whole line of things that you're working in. And it's a decision. So any addiction needs a decision. I can stop this, or I can put it at a level that I use for advantage or upliftment. And I'd be careful of judging that. Like, this is a kind of a loaded field, often. There are many loaded fields, so it's not the only one, but it's often something that brings up a lot of anything from who cares, what's the big deal, and to, it's the evil thing. It's the thing that is the most terrible thing on earth. But in a way, what it is as a substance, that if you looked at out of God comes all things, then so did alcohol. Well, what's that about? Maybe our ancestors would tell the better part of the story. Like, we ran out of good water, so we found out that if we fermented it, at least we could tolerate it, and get some, like, we could drink something that wouldn't make us sick. There's some of this, if you just go back and think, well, how did these things happen? And often preservatives, preserving meat, preserving food, was something so that you could eat it later, instead of it was something we couldn't eat because now it was in a form that was toxic. So how things were learned and developed. But then it's kind of like, well, there's so much is good for the system, and then there's a point where it's not good for the system. And you decide that. And you decide to what degree you're involved. I'm sure it blocks awareness. If you really looked at it, there's a level of it that opens awareness, but that's like a real narrow point. Like salt. It's like, salt's good for the system. And then there's a point, hey, that's no longer good for the system. That can shut the system down. But if you don't have enough salt, that can shut the system down. So it's about balance and finding out what that is. Alcohol is actually something that could save you because it sterilizes, or it takes certain forms of poison out because it's a stronger poison. But if it works, if it saves your life, you'd be thankful for it. And there was more than one amputation that was served by alcohol. Some of it went to the doctor or the person doing the amputation, just so they could deal with it. Is God showing me the way by what is made available in life? Yes, but also not the way. Oh, that's where we get in trouble. It's not all the way. Well, it's all the way in certain ways. So part of it is you're learning how to discern. That's a spiritual gift. Discernment. Is this on purpose for me? Is this on highest purpose? Is this my highest good? Is this working? Those are levels of discernment. So be aware, be conscious. Put your antennas up so you're watching what you're doing. And we're in a land where there's multiple consciousness here. So there's things serving the mosquitoes, but that isn't necessarily your level of concern. And there's things that serve other people, and it's not necessarily your level of concern. So that's where you need to have your wits about you as you go on about your life, because there's so many choices. Choices upon choices upon choices. Can I truly create what I wish by following my heart? It's more than what you wish. It's the dream, and the seed gets in the heart, and it starts transmitting into the creative imagination. That's why it's important what you behold in your heart, you can become. Well, what's already there holding in your heart is going to become. If not in this day or this lifetime, when it is, can God change what's in my heart? Hey, God's fully capable of making changes. And if you don't do this opportunity, then a new opportunity or a new dream or vision can appear. And then there's another part, acting step by step physically and holding the clear intention of what I wish to manifest. It isn't always about holding the clear intention, it's being available to God's intention with you. That God is intention. And this thing we call God's will, it's in you. So if you're available to it, consider that it's not just something fixed. It's dynamic, it's alive. So could it be steady? Could it be eternal? Okay. But consider it also could be dynamically changing and moving through what it is. So what it was 10 seconds ago is different now. And it continually is moving in a new form. So you're not stuck on some, but I saw this vision. That's like taking a snapshot of something that's in motion. It's no longer what you snapped. It's over here now. Some of this we've already worked with in large part, so I'm just moving on and seeing if there's something newly dynamic and coming in off the presses now. During the past few years, when I attempt to do SEs with my tone, this would be initiatory tone that are given to those who are initiated, and this person in particular is talking about initiations into the sound current. There's more information if that's a new topic for you. I feel like there is an uncomfortable pull. You could describe it that way, but it's also moving you past your resistance, past what you would do in your own comfort. So consider that your prayer is being answered by moving out of what's comfortable for you. And then you're being stretched and pulled, and there's work. And there's work in areas that in some way you've been resisting or avoiding. So that work is going on. Does this mean that SEs are not for me at this time? What do you suppose the answer is to that? Well, let me quote John Roger, who's been quoted numerous times. The only wrong way is not doing it. So spiritual exercise is in your advantage. Can you do it to a level where you get something like indigestion, like it's too much? You're out of balance. You can't handle that much. That's why we talk about 2 hours. So that you have other things that you have responsibility to that keep all of your dynamics harmonizing. There's a time for this, there's a time for that, there's a time for everything under heaven. But give some time to meet up with your Maker, this day. Put yourself in a position to call upon that presence that comes forward in that name. If it's too much, then back off. But at some point you can back off and you're off. You're not really doing what you need to be doing to take advantage of the opportunity to move yourself spiritually.
The way this is being revealed about this person, but I think it is valuable for everybody, is that within the consciousness there's a stubbornness at work. And that stubbornness is playing out as an attachment to a way in which their consciousness has been patterned about how experience should come to them. And it's almost like they keep wanting to have more and more experience looking through the same way or the same avenue they always have, and yet the greater experience they seek is to give up the methodology by which they've allowed the Spirit to reach to them, the way they've opened their senses or they've defined that this is how God will reach me. If they recognize that the undoing of their patterning is what will really open their awareness to the Spirit and to the revelation the Spirit would give them, they would move away from a sort of mechanistic, rote way of doing their meditation and become inventive and creative in the way they apply the tone, the way they apply the process of spiritual exercise. This stagnation that sometimes happens is usually because we've let ourselves become attached to a patterning. We don't realize that we're upholding a self-definition, which is part of the ego. And so when you get stuck, it usually tells you when you're not getting the progress you want, many times it's because you've gotten caught in a patterning. So you've got to undo the patterning and try something different, something inventive, something you haven't tried before. A lot of the different ways that people do this, I remember talking about this at one point, and I talked about how I would meditate to the third eye and I would look back through my head rather than forward, and then I'd try spinning inside. And I remember talking about this when John Rutgers there, and he threw in and said, well, at one point he tried doing a spiritual exercise where he was upside down looking through his head, so like the top of his head was here and he's looking out that way. Why do it all those different ways? Because it breaks the crystallization, because in the reality the Spirit is formless and it doesn't restrict its approach to us because we say it should come this way. So by breaking the way we are patterning its coming to us, we allow it to come to us in more original, inventive ways, which allow us to have what we're after. Because what we're really after is the breaking down of all patterning. So I hope this will help, but it's something that many people get obstructed by in the spiritual exercises. God doesn't require one particular way. That's why the only wrong way to do them is not to do them. But let them be active and dynamic. And if you keep the active, dynamic, creative element in it, there'll be originality and newness will appear inevitably. If you're not seeing the Spirit moving you, you're not seeing it because you've patterned yourself out of the revelation that's offering you.
I'm going to do something with you that would approximate how to complete with the day. So this day, sure, but I still have to drive home. We're taking that into consideration. So the things that remain and what you're doing, but it would also be about, well, how could I bring myself into a state of awareness and consciousness such that this day is blessed wholly and completely? That's a good question. And part of it is to have that intention, so that you would gather yourself in what has been referred to as dying this day, that you would let go so completely that the Lord could keep you and take you. But it wouldn't be like, but what, I wasn't finished and had more to do, and or some protest, or there's everybody, the bill collectors show up and the arrest warrants or whatever, and then shaking their fists at God like, why would you take such a incomplete person? Because I can. Because I do, because I have that grace and that peace, so that I bring in, so we invoke in the Lord's name. It could be just like that I just did it, by calling upon the Lord's name. But you didn't say the Lord's name. Well, in some ways I can't say it with my tongue. I can't vocalize it because it's unspeakable. So in that name that moves up into the higher octaves, so that we're letting go of this form, and so at some point you can be out of the body. So if you're going to do that in such a way as you would fall, I'd say, well, get down now, or stop what you're doing so that you can let your body be in a place so that the spirit can be taken out. So that would be in a good position, so that if you're going to go out of the body, it's okay. You're in bed, or you're at least the place where you want to lay your head for this moment, and lay the body down, surrender the temple, so that who you are can be ushered up in the spirit. And part of that would be to release yourself from the bonds that this world has upon you. That's another way of saying the karma. That you would invoke the light that will release you from whatever is the disturbance of the day, and that just goes right into your existence. But it's really important to make peace with this day. That you bring in the peace that is the Christ, that one who has already demonstrated this in the flesh and is holding that consciousness for all who come into this light, so that we seek the light that liberates us from these bonds, from these attachments into the world, and that we invoke that also through the mystical traveler, the purple light. And you can see these things, you can visualize these things around the body or with you. You can see the embrace. You can see yourself going into your sanctuary. You can see yourself going into a gathering into the spirit, into the light. So more and more, you're not of this world, you're of the spirit in your conscious awareness. And if there's things that you would want to pray for, that you would petition specifically to be blessed or released, that we do that at this time. Sometimes you see faces, or maybe you hear names or situations. You can put all of your anxiety, all of your fear into the light so you go free. So you're invoking your own spiritual nature and realizing that in your high self and in the soul consciousness and in the consciousness that is the beloved of God, that it embraces all of this perfectly and lifts you out of whatever situations have been disturbing, painful, of any kind of negative concern. That all of this is brought into the love of the Christ, the forgiveness, this holy grace that sets you free. And in this moment, you know you are beloved of God. Beirish Beshan.
You all could just hold in your seats for a few minutes. Let's give John time to leave or do whatever he needs to do to clear himself. And in the meantime, I have just a few things I want to tell you about that are happening in the month of August. This is a hopping place, I just need to tell you. So every Monday night, Sacred Tones, that's chanting the names of God like we did tonight with the Anai Hugh. Every Wednesday night's a Spanish workshop or seminar, free-form writing, and John Morton seminar whenever he's in town and he can make it on his schedule. Every Friday night is a recorded seminar with John Roger or John. The next one is John Rogers' Is Your Future Pulling You Forward? Wow, that's a really nice sequel to tonight. So next Friday, right here. And John Morton in person here on Friday nights when he can make it. August 11th, which is tomorrow, Saturday at the Labyrinth, a lovely afternoon spending in walking the Labyrinth and visiting the gardens. Also, Spanish tele-workshop tomorrow, Connecting to the Inner Guide. August 18th, as John said, webcast seminar at the building at 2101 Wilshire in Santa Monica. Not one soul will be lost. August 22 and September 5th, join the tele-workshop, Living the Spiritual Principles of Abundance and Prosperity. August 25th, Spiritual Spa Day right here with John in Spanish and in English. And more and more we're doing worldwide web connections with all these events. So stay tuned with that by going to the MSIA website. Thanks to John for being here. What a lovely evening we've had. Turn in your radios, join us for refreshments, and God bless you all.
And thank you, Carol.
Where are you with your God? And where are you with your job? What is it you that bring you down? Just get happy and raise that frown. Is your mind a battlefield full of war? What is it that you're fighting for? 'Cause I'm free. Are you loving you and you loving me? 'Cause I'm free. Just forgive yourself, come on. Let it be. Where are you with your pain? Are you blinded by the lights of fame? Where are you with Jesus Christ. Will you live your life before your death? Did you know that God gives you your breath? 'Cause I'm free. Are you loving you and loving me? 'Cause I'm free. Just forgive yourself, come on, let it be. Where are you with your love? When you get stuck, just look from above. Where are you with your help? Care enough to take care of yourself? Do you love your kids enough to tell them what's true? Do you love your kids when they act just like you? 'Cause I'm free. I'm loving you and loving me. 'Cause I'm free. Just forgive yourself, come on, let it be. 'Cause I'm free. Said I'm loving you, baby, yeah. Said I'm loving you.